Greetings, welcome to day 8 of Autoforge's development recap video thing. So, um, as I hinted at yesterday, teased, we worked on making it possible to access components as fields on the entity. What that means is that we have our entity object that has all these components, our transform and render, inventory, gear, etc. Whatever components we're putting on it. We have those living on the entity, and those are all contained within some container. Here we have a component map, which is component ID to the component itself. So normally, in order to get the component, we need to do something along the lines of a get function. So we'd say entity.get, specify the component that we want to get, and then we can use that component. But with the scripting language, we can do actually much better, because we can manipulate things. So instead of having to say entity.get inventory or something like that, something along the lines of this here, we can instead simply say entity.inventory. And so that's what we worked on, getting to this work. And so that's us being able to access it by a field. And with Soul, that's called indexing. So what we do is we have this index function here that we that is called whenever Lua tries to access a field that does not exist on that object. And so what we do is we take the name, we get the hash of it, we look through our components. The component ID is just the hash of the name. And then we do this thing where we say we want to get the component as an object. And this was actually something that tripped us up for a while. At first I was trying to just take the component and return it as a Soul object, and that did not work because we were trying to we were taking a component pointer and just returning a component pointer, and Soul has no concept of types, and everything's just stored like as a void pointer or whatever. And so it couldn't downcast to the proper type. So we'd get the component on the Lua side, if we did entity.inventory, we'd get the component, but it didn't think that it was, an inventory component. It thought it was just a normal component, just the component period, which has no data or anything of use on it. It has some helper functions, and that's it, like a get component ID. And so what we needed to do is add in this as object. And what this as object does, it's really simple actually. It just returns a Soul object. And so if we look for where we implement that, I think the best place to show it is right here, this as object. Let me scroll up some. All we do is, so every single component will implement this function. And it just returns a Soul make object passing in the Soul state and this. And that makes it so that we know the type at the time we're making it into an object. So we know, like, hey, if this is being called, so this is all happening here in this definition, this macro. So this will be added to like our transform component, and it'll just say, hey, we're going to make this transform component into a Soul object. And that's how that works. And the result is that we're able to do sexy stuff like this. and we can run it and see that we do have that information working. So we see like all this printing right here is actually what this is. So we can see the data equals test entity ID, that's 5. That was just me testing stuff, so that's giving us a frame of reference. And then if we go down, this 3030, that is both this line and this line right here. And then we're also changing the transform of this entity, which happens to be this little pudding entity right here. And we're moving it from 100 down to 200. And that's it. That's how we got all of that working. It took some time to figure out how things needed to be set up because, you know, every single scripting library is a little different, and so we had to better understand the requirements of Soul. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow.